Hey there, I'm back with another video. It is 7:32 p.m. and it is Tuesday, I think. I think it's Tuesday. Maybe. Hang on, let me just double check. Nope, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, April 23rd. And I am back with another video. I just uploaded a video. I was really upset earlier, if you could tell. But anyway, yeah, I wanted to come back and make another video because I'm kind of in a chatty mood. And I was thinking I got a few more things that I wanted to talk about. So, the first thing I'm kind of picking up on from a lot of people who are watching my videos, and I don't know it, but I feel like a lot of people are knowing what I'm talking about. And I'm assuming that this shadow channel still exists, even though Rex Laverne is dead, which I'm so glad. I don't know how that works, but somehow or another, people are understanding what's going on, even though I don't really show a whole lot of activity on my channel. So I do think that perhaps maybe the shadow channel may still be in operation. And plus, I do get intuitive messages or thoughts that perhaps maybe I'm appearing in newsreels, and that could be like them summarizing the videos that I'm uploading or whatever. Because I don't know if people are following me around. I don't know. I don't ever see anybody, looking at me funny or anything like that. So I don't know. All I know is that I get these intuitive messages that there's newsreels about me and people talk about me. But anyway, a lot of people are thinking about, how they're starting to understand the point and the message that I was trying to get across when I first started my channel. It's like now people are starting to understand what I'm talking about and putting two and two together. And now people are kind of thinking, I mean, I wish I would have listened to her, and this is the kind of stuff that happens. Like I said, I'm an autodidact, and I'm very serious about being able to work with companies and branch out in my quote unquote career. And I understand that I've had a lot of setbacks in my life, mainly because of the whole CB Berganza and the Mormon connection. And I'm looking at all of this, stuff that's happened to me, and it's very painful for a lot of people. And this is one of the reasons why I'm talking about human trafficking and morals and stuff like that, because this was an issue that really affected me. Like when I think down, I mean, on my past, on the stuff that was going on, in my neighborhood and in my classroom throughout all the years, and then where it got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore and left school, and then entered the workforce, and then I mean, all I'm looking back at all these years and all this interconnection and stuff like that. It's very painful for me, because I understand that my parents were, I mean, my mom was, well, my dad was also their adoptive parents. And, this stuff has been kept from me for a very long time. And then also, the fact that somebody had a covert operation, aside from one that was going on while I was growing up as a kid, in addition to, I should say, with Rex Laverne being at the helm of this, harassment campaign that had lasted over, a decade. And so it causes me a lot of mind collapses to know that my family, I mean, I can understand, I mean, I'm not excusing it in any way, but I can somewhat understand, like, the kids you go to school with, because they don't really have any connection to you. They're not supposed to have really that deep a connection. Or sometimes you can, but okay, fine. You betrayed me, you sold me out, and you sat here and treated me like garbage. But when it comes to your family, okay, you're raised to believe that I was raised to believe that these people were my family. And to think that I had these insiders, like this malicious type of energy was directed towards me, from people who outright hated me, encouraging my family to basically turn their backs on me, betray me, and want to put my life in jeopardy, like they have. You know what I mean? And of course, they were paid or paid. They talk about people getting incentives for in gang stalking operations. What that is like some people talk about getting gift cards. Some people get jobs. You know what I mean? They literally, you know, um, walk out or go up the ladder, at your expense, knowing that you're looking for work, or they'll arrange things to where they try to rub it in your face. Now I understand this whole issue of me coming back from as being CV Braganza plays a big part in all this, okay? Because Mormons felt some sort of need to compete with me, okay? And I do. When I look at the doctrines of their religion, I'm like, okay, I know that King Solomon, because this was traditional. People were, I guess, they had to populate the earth at one point, and perhaps maybe, I know in the Bible talks about him having wives and concubines and stuff like that, and that was it. And so I know Mormons did practice polygamy, in their early origins, and I do know that Mormons are very big into the genealogy stuff. Now, of course, growing up, the kids who were involved in all this, who betrayed me and were happy to do it. I want to tell you guys something. While I found out that I was being targeted, like right around leaving the Murray Family Farms place, okay, I felt this dark, very dark energy. It almost felt crazy, and it was like it didn't make any sense. Like, the logic behind it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to figure out why somebody would be doing this to me. And these messages that I kept getting were just like really sick and inconsistent. And I understand now that this was a religious thing, okay? And, we had a lot of brainwashing, which emerged into like a cult type behavior. People got bloodthirsty. I have felt throughout the years of this whole issue, after leaving Murray Family Farms, I felt people that I used to know being removed from the earth. I don't know what kind of sick game was going on, but a lot of people ended up dead. You know what I mean? And this is way before like Rex Laverne died, and the Mormon Friends are all died and stuff. People got out of control with this competition or this sort of weird shit that should have never happened. Okay, to me it was just completely immoral. But I understand, like, things like company handbooks talk about hazing and stuff like, and I am not trying to be a nerd, okay? But I understand how businesses operate, and I understand because I'm into psychology. I understand what can escalate from these little games that are played out in the workplace. And sometimes, it's not just these games. Sometimes it's a part of an orchestrated effort to destroy other people, and sometimes that is actually done through religions. Religions. I talk about gang stalking. The name for people who stalk you for religious causes purposes is referred to as cause stalking. It's pretty much the same reason thing, but it's called cause stalking because the cause is to, of course, convert you. So they'll use the same kind of tactics with the intent of changing your behavior or whatever. In this case, I was a bad, sinful person because I chose to be, somebody who dresses up nice and takes care of themselves. And like I said, I understand the issue's over, but see, the thing is, women they really don't like people messing with that. Okay? That's like you messing with their life. When you take care of yourself, it is a confirmation that says, I live a good life. I live a good life. It is a confirmation of living a life well lived. And, this is, you don't have to be beautiful, but you do have to be taking care of yourself, and you should be presentable, in my opinion. Okay, that's my standard that I have a right to have. And when people try to attack it, it makes women feel very uncomfortable, and they immediately, they don't know how to defend themselves. And because it makes them feel awkward because it sounds like, oh, are you trying to say you're arrogant? It has nothing to do with arrogance, but it does have something to do with your self-esteem and how you are as a person. Okay, and really, it should be a no-brainer. That's something that you should never ever put people into that sort of position to where you even like mention something like that. It's considered to be ill-mannered. Like, what is wrong with you? So this particular religious group scared the hell out of me. Not because, okay, it does bother me that somebody would want to take my clothes and stuff away because that's the only thing I have to live for. But it's the fact that, it's the aggression that was used behind it. And then also the fact that they had other people, betray me. Okay? They watched my mom die, me not be a part of it. I was upset when my mom died. All of this stuff happened, and, Rex Laverne was at the helm controlling all of it, knowing all of the stuff was happening, knowing that other people died, knowing that, He was affecting people's businesses, and he sat there and he let that shit happen. And that's why I get made me angry, because this man was sitting here acting like, oh, it's no big deal or whatever. He destroys lives, and I know that he was promoting this idea of where empathy was a bad thing and all this stuff. The reason why he was saying this is because he was on a mission. He was on a mission. He was affiliated with some stuff that he should. Well, that's his choice to be affiliated with it, but it was a bad thing to do. Okay, and so he was pressing forward with it, and this is the kind of stuff that people participate in. It resembles all the stuff that the Nazis and the KKK has used in the past. And because I'm somebody who's delved into that sort of stuff, I already knew what was going on, and I tried to tell people what was going on, but I had a lot of gaslighting. This is I really want to be as detailed as I can about me talking about human trafficking and the things that go on, and the behavioral traits is something that definitely needs to be highlighted, and also manipulative type behavior that people are set up and instructed to exhibit. For example, like gaslighting. Gaslighting is like either undermining your feelings of your concern. Like, when I was over at BT Trucking and I was expressing to Jackie about how disturbed I was about being stalked and all this other stuff, and then you come up with these sort of attitudes, like they try to turn it around, like, oh, you're crazy or something's wrong with you. You should never do that to a person. Okay, that's a form of gaslighting. It's a form of psychological abuse and manipulation, to where they're trying to make you question your sanity. Okay, these sort of mind games that get operated, this is what I'm talking about. It's the sort of stuff that goes on in the workplace that I personally believe is the reason why people go postal. This is the reason why the game playing. You're playing with somebody's life. Okay, and I don't mean to go on and on and on about it, but the issue of me being it's like I feel betrayed 100%, because my family knew that I wasn't into religion. I don't want to be associated. I don't even like being associated with anything. Okay, really, to be honest with you, because I have become very into myself, right? But I understand now that my family was a part, or somehow got sucked into the religious group, right? Because they got favors and everything else, and then also my parents adopted me because I believe that they had some sort of idea at the time where they placed clones in houses, I guess because maybe it was some sort of burden that was supposed to be placed on the family, because maybe they believed that this particular person, me, okay, had sinned in a past life, when I didn't sin in the past life. What it was is because I just chose not to be a part of their church. Okay, and see, this is where religion becomes a problem. You know what I mean? Because I understand that religion is man-made. I don't care what religion you call it. Religion is man-made. Okay, and that's fine if people want to, adhere to that, if that they choose to do so. If they feel as though it's giving them fulfillment in life and good direction in life, that's their choice, right? But the thing is that because it's man-made, it's open to having problems, and it's open to, my biggest thing, what I talk about, is self-interest, okay? Self-interest is something that we normally have, but like I said, the thing is that because it's something that we normally have, it's something that can also, go into the border of, or the crossover the line of common decency, which sometimes when people want things our way, some people resort to, immoral type behavior, and it's easy to do. I'm not excusing it, okay, but I'm saying it is easy to do, okay? And also, it's easy to do mainly because so many people are ignorant of, the guidelines as to how they should operate. But in this case, do I believe that the Mormons knew what they were doing was cruel? I know that they knew. I'm pretty sure that they did. There's no way in the world they can sit here and act like, and this is why I hate seeing their faces. Okay, because they knew good and well. How could you tell me what you were doing was not cruel? It's and they feel justified in doing it. Okay, so if they were to stand in a court of law to explain why they were doing it, they would all gone to jail. You know what I mean? Because they're sitting here admitting to this form of terrorism because it's normal to them. It's normal to them. Okay, so this is what I'm saying is why people need to be careful about what it is that they believe. Okay, that's fine. You can believe this. Okay, and you need to keep your prophesizing, meaning like you want to door, you want to ride your bicycle. God forbid I see you doing it, but anyway, because you guys just at this point, you guys are nothing but like Mormons are nothing more than like triggers for me. Okay, but they have the right to do that. They have the right to prophesize. Okay, but when it talks about employment and not be discriminating in regarding religion, it's not that you can't be a particular religion. You can be any religion and legally be hired. Okay, that's not the issue. It's like sometimes people do inappropriate things that could set them up for a possible lawsuit. For example, like a manager will will interview a potential employee, right? And they'll ask them questions that are not necessarily okay. I'm going to say they're borderline illegal. Okay, and the reason why I say that is because like for example, they might ask you if which church do you go to? What is your religion? And if she said, or I said, or let's just say this, I'm pretending, okay? If I said, oh, okay, I go to of St. Mary's, I'm Catholic or something, right? And this dude's a Mormon, right? I don't end up getting the job, right? And so, do you think that some people would want to sue this person because thinking that it was religious discrimination? Somebody could easily say that, right? Or if I've worked in companies in the past where we had like these Christian more managers to where they honestly do believe that they should sit here and try to invite people to their church. And there is nothing, like I said, there's nothing wrong with inviting people to their church, okay? But that could put people into a lot of pressure. It could make people feel pressured to, if they have a conflict with that particular manager at some point, they could sit there and say, oh, religious discrimination because I didn't go to church or whatever, and you were trying to convert me or whatever. And that goes for, asking people about political affiliations. It's the same thing about asking people about their marital status and other things. There are certain things that you really shouldn't be asking during job interviews. You know what I mean? And it's not about, like I said, I will work for anybody. That has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with it. I've worked for a woman who owned a company. She was a woman who owned a tanning salon of all places, right? But anyway, yeah, I worked for her. She was Mormon. I've worked for Catholic people. I've worked for different people. I went to school with people with different religions. I've studied different religions. I have no problem with working for people with religion. But the problem is like when you try to convert people and you use coercion and manipulative tactics to force them into that is human trafficking. It is what it is, okay? And I want to talk more about human trafficking and the different and what that looks like. And so anyway, me getting back to the first intuitive message was about me not being religious. Because I am not religious does not mean that I do not believe in a higher power, because obviously I do. Okay, it's just that I see the difference between I really do look at the way that the Mormons were behaving. Obviously can put the connection between them and the archons that I have talked about before, and I do believe that it's a religion of the devil. Okay, I honestly do believe that, and what makes me think this is because, like I said, I understand we have to have money. Okay, and I understand that they glorified materialism to the point of where I know this was like dangled in my face a lot when I was working at different jobs. The materialism. I have this, I have that, and it was just I do believe that their main focus is not on spirituality, true God connection. It's more on money. Okay, and I do think that money is, like I said, it's something we have to have. But if it rules your life, and if you feel as though you are defined by what you make, then that is the god of that's the devil. I mean, it is the devil. I mean, if there's nothing wrong with being rich, there really isn't anything wrong with being rich. But I don't believe that it is anything that does not get you closer to God. It doesn't. It really doesn't. And I know a lot of people who practice prosperity preaching and everything. There's a lot of people who struggle, and that doesn't mean that they are not, like for me, for example, me. The reason why I'm attacked is because I'm somebody of God. You know what I mean? That's what the Bible says. People like me get attacked all the time. You know what I mean? So the Bible right now to me is like a bunch of code, right? It is code because I'm looking at it from the cloning perspective, and I'm also looking at it, from some of the accounts, are very interesting, especially when I think of how, like, Jesus got betrayed. And no, I do not want to sit here and classify myself as Jesus, but I'm looking at this whole issue, and they do look at me as the chosen one. I do believe that I have a certain powers that other people do not. But I really don't want to. I don't know. I mean, it's cool. I guess it's cool, but I also don't want to get big headed. You know what I mean? I really don't. But anyway, when it comes to Jesus, I look at his life and I do see, how he was betrayed a lot. He was betrayed a lot in his life, and of course, I'm sure when you think about the kind of people that he was connected to, the kind of people that he didn't have a problem talking to, and I'm the same way. The woman at the well, and he would sit here and talk to prostitutes and stuff like that. He talked to people that were not considered to be the utmost. Okay, why? Because you understand their suffering. You know what I mean? If you are really of God, you will understand people's suffering. You know what I mean? And want to do something about it instead of laughing at it and thinking it's funny. It's not funny. You know what I mean? And I understand that the Mormon Church decided to take a lot of jabs at me and enjoy it, and then include other people. Okay? When I think about, where we are on earth and the way that people suffer, to me, and I don't believe in like hell fire. I don't believe in that. I do believe that the Bible talks about, anguish and all this stuff. It's a way of describing the frustration and the kind of frustration. And even though they describe it like burning and all this stuff, it is burning. It is anguish. It's like rolling a rock uphill over and over and over again and having it tumble down. We live in this place that's just nothing but thorn and thistle and problems and just over the top dread and whatever. You know what I mean? And it's here on earth. It's here on earth. And to me, when I think about the idea of hell, I think of this struggle that's on the earth and the main demons that run it, and control it and make it what it is. And that would be a part of the Mormon Church. And that's how I feel. Now, like I said, I do know that the Mormon Church is still functioning, right? Hopefully they're changing their doctrines for their own good, because I'm sure they have like a little community there and whatever, and that's all very well and good and stuff like that. But, I'm going to tell you, you freak me out for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? And I hope that if they do have a repentant heart, which, I don't know if they do or they don't, and I really don't. I don't want to know. I'm just saying is, it concerns me that people could be so goddamn evil. So yeah, I am content. I don't need religion to make me a moral person. I don't need religion to make me make decisions. I'm very proud of how I see things. I believe in my philosophy, and I record things that I believe. And I'm a writer, I'm a researcher, and this is what I'm into. And my life is, of course, a part of my research. Everything's a part of my research, you know what I mean? So even when somebody gets in my face, like those obnoxious people that I had to deal with at work, while they were sitting here, like, yelling off and, like, spewing off or whatever in my face, I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, I am so analyzing you. I just find it so very fascinating that people could be so brainwashed, It's quite intriguing. So yeah, religion has never done anything for me except for, made me think about things and put things in the proper perspective and let me know what I don't want in life. And and this should be like a message to people who practice the religion. If you want people to stay, then you need to be able to give them a better way of life. The reason why it was easy to convert people into attacking me is because they know good and well that they were jealous of me. I dealt with a lot of people who were jealous of me. Why? Because they don't understand, somebody who can have that kind of free mind that I have. They didn't like their life. That's why it was easy for them to attack me. That's why. You know what I mean? Because you give them shit for life, shit to live for. There's nothing, that has really enhanced their life. So if you do have a church, then perhaps maybe that should be your main goal. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you will lose members. And I will tell you right now, for churches who think it's okay to sit here and gang stalk and terrorize a person back to their congregation, I am after these sort of people. I am after these sort of people. Okay, this is like the underlying current that I'm talking about that is creating all of these problems, brainwashing, and I understand churches are getting very desperate because a lot of members are leaving. Okay, and like I said, it's not me. I never did this. I didn't cause it. But now that I do understand what the root of it is, and since I was attacked, now I'm going after it. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to destroy churches. I'm saying that people are going to have to develop more ethical practices. What goes on in your church does not interfere with what goes on at work. Okay, and what goes on at work, churches should be telling their members how to behave on this issue. Instead of thinking that, we're going to go over and take over this mess. It doesn't. Unless, of course, the company is owned by a particular religion, then I guess that makes sense. You know what I mean? But when you're sitting here, it just does not make, it's just absolute nightmare what happened. You know what I mean? And like I said, I recognized it for what it was, and it was terrifying for me to try to communicate this because these people had, Rex Laverne had people so brainwashed. He had people so brainwashed, and it was dangerous. It is dangerous to isolate somebody, right? And then ban them on social media. And then he had the whole complete and total narrative of to how people were going to see me and how people were, to view me. You know what I mean? He could tell people I was crazy if they want to. So if I ended up dying, who'd give a fuck, right? Who'd care, right? Do you see how easy that you could kill somebody by doing this sort of stuff? This stuff has to stop. And I'm going after the churches who are doing it. And that's what I'm doing. And it's a part of the moral reset. Me talking about human trafficking, identifying it, and churches better get on board because you cannot do this to people. You cannot enslave people to be your members. So what you need to do is you need to show them a better way of life. And if you can't, expect to lose more members. And that goes for all the congregations. This should not happen to anybody. Now, I also got the intuitive message that people were fascinated with my attention to Elon Musk. Like I said, I do understand that Elon was very influenced by the Mormon Church. Okay, I don't know if he's like a new convert. I do know that in the last 2 years, Mormons have been converting people like crazy. And I think it has a lot to do with their little takeover or whatever. So I guess from that perspective, it does seem strange. But, I've seen him on, flashing on my Facebook or social media or whatever. And, I always thought to myself, he's really cute. He's cute. I like his little face. And then, I just started noticing him, I would say, in the last 2 months or so, you know what I mean, like really paying attention to him, and I understand what's going on, and I do know that he's gotten wrapped up with this, and I did make a comment about him in my newsletter, because I understand how Mormons think. I understand how they think, okay, and I do believe that this is a what do you call it, a religion that because they like to, they enjoy tormenting people. They enjoy bullying people. I was thinking about, or making people feel small. Like I know when I had mentioned this guy before, it was a few years ago, 2008 or so. I was in Mojave. I was dropping my son off at the bus stop. I ended up meeting a homeless Mormon man who was excommunicated. Well, I don't know if he was really formally excommunicated, but he was no longer going to the Mormon church. Anyway, he was talking to me, and we got to know each other. And, he was always afraid of being made to feel small. He had mentioned it so many times that I honestly kept thinking, what is this, some sort of behavioral technique that they use on you? You know what I mean? And then when I saw, Ruby Frank, now I'm going to say something in Ruby Frank's defense, okay? I understand what Mormonism does to people, okay? And Mormonism encourages people to have really big families, which I said, like if her people are financially set to have them, that's fine. But some people have all these kids and then they start to realize that they feel burdened by these kids and they start resenting these kids. And you know what? And as much as I hate to say this, because, you know, I hate to say it because, you know, it almost seems like I'm saying something that is should be said in private, because to say something that a mother could resent their kid, it almost seems like um, unholy, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Because I think that mothers should love their kids. And I'm not saying that Ruby Frank doesn't love her kids, but I will say that sometimes Mormonism makes people or encourages large families and puts a burden on people. Okay, so going back to, you know, Ruby Frank being criticized for her parenting technique, you know, I do believe that Mormons do a lot of cruel things in their mind. They honestly think it's a form of discipline. You know what I mean? And I do know that she was advised by another lady who I think wrote a book or something on how to parent, who was also a member of the Mormon Church. And like I said, you know, I'm not saying that I'm excusing her, and I am not in any way, you know, condemning her either. I'm just saying is that Mormons have some very strange ways of dealing with people, and they obviously like to make people emotionally abuse people. Okay, and coming from a mindset of, like, you know, never really evolving. Never really evolving. Like, what I mean by that is, like, you know, this is a religion that's been around for quite a while, you know, and, you know, the women are still controlled. At least they were at one point. I think they're trying to do some changes right now, but the women are still controlled, and they still, you know, want to incorporate, or they still see women as like some sort of property, or whatever. They're very immoral, and they do things that shock me. Okay, it shocks me. Okay, but and they use forceful tactics. You know what I mean? So anyway, me seeing pictures of Elon, you know, that's not the only picture that I posted on that I've seen that make me question. You know, is he just kidding, or is he somebody who has been abused by the Mormon Church? You know what I mean? And it really kind of makes me sad to think that he could possibly be an abused person, and that, you know, they would resort to doing something like that, because in their mind they would probably feel judged. These are very sick religious people, very sick people, you know. And I've noticed that, you know, growing up in school, and I mentioned these individuals in my newsletter. You know, I'm not trying to dig it up now, but, you know, I've been around their abuse all my life. So I'm looking at how, you know, this whole issue went down with Elon, and do I think that they would use anyone as a scapegoat? Okay, they don't have any feelings, they don't have any concern, and so this is what makes me wonder about who he is, and is he just somehow, you know, somebody who got stuck in their little game? You know what I mean? Because I understand the kind of manipulative tactics that they can use. And so this is why you know, makes me interested in him. You know, I do like him. He's a cute kid. You know what I mean? Kid, why? I look at everybody that I'm associated with through this cloning thing as kids on the playground. Okay, that's just my little name for everybody. So that includes, you know, Prince William and everything. It's just, we're all clones and whatever. You know, that kind of stuff. So I'm just talking about that he is just, you know, one of the guys that I'm interested in getting to know. And I do hope that I get to know Elon more. And I do communicate with him as much as I possibly can. And I'm taking interest in, because, you know, he's an abused person. That's what I believe. I believe that he's been abused. So anyway, I think I'm going to wrap up this video. And if there's any more mental dumps, you know, I will definitely come on here and make a video. You know, a lot of it is just regurgitation of things I've said before, but I just hope people understand the psychological effects of human trafficking, gang stalking, workplace mobbing. You know, yeah, I'm disturbed because it evolved into something this big. And I know that when it comes to people like Rick Severn, who probably, you know, was really proactive about, you know, me making my videos on my YouTube channel. You know, I think he probably thought I was feeling stupid or over the top, or I was just somebody who just liked to make up rules in the workplace, or I was just like goody two shoes. Okay, I am not. I have a great sense of humor. I know how to act and behave. Okay, it's just that, I understand that, I understand the nature of man. Okay, I understand that some people have competitive spirits. I understand that there's a combination of different people in work environments. Okay, and I understand that, you know uh, it all has something to do with the behavior. You know what I mean? And I'm fascinated by branching out and doing my projects and looking for work that's fulfilling. And see, he was somebody who didn't feel as though I was deserving of it. Also, I did want to talk about how he, because I've been really thinking about how he used people and the reason why these covert operations continue or how they work and how they are successful, how he was able to manage keeping it going for this long. Okay, now he told my son he was convinced, and my son did not tell me this. I understand this through intuitive messages. Okay, my son has been a hush 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 hush. Okay, I will tell you, I will never try to pressure my son to do this, but I hope that my son now understands that you don't do this kind of stuff. Okay, you do not do this sort of stuff. This covert nature stuff is dangerous. Okay, it's dangerous. But anyway, I believe he was telling my son that, oh, she doesn't have a bachelor's degree, so we're just gonna go ahead and do all this other stuff, okay? And then he also told all the other people that he was going to help them get jobs and through all this other stuff through joining, I guess, the Mormon Church or whatever. So it's like he has this little game playing, and he tells people to keep things secret. You know what I mean? We don't keep secrets. Okay, so I'm telling people, I want people to understand that this modern day Holocaust starts with that. You don't let people talk to your underage kids. You don't let people enter into your household in any shape or form, in any manner. Okay, your kids and your family, you need to teach them not to be talking about what goes on in your life. Okay, and you need to be talking to them about gang stalking. And I'm hoping that this, moral reset that I create is going to be a helpful tool. Because it's for education, the future of the education for people who are truly educated, who will be, hopefully in the future, be truly educated, so that they can function in a society that mirrors their skills, or mirror who they are. Okay, a cultivated, civilized person. Hopefully, that's what society will evolve into. Because at this point, with the education down, people not being able to perform well after even leaving college or whatever, this is a problem. You know what I mean? So anyway, hopefully I will be a part of the solution. Okay, I'm going to wrap this video up, and I will be back with another video sometime later. I was going to go for a walk because I needed to get out of the house, and then now it's all dark, so I guess I won't be doing that. Guess I'll just be bored here a little bit longer. Have a good night. Bye-bye.